Daily Journal is also among your holdings.
Yeah.
And after Munger passed away, the publisher alerted that do not expect the same return. So were you also considering adjusting the size of this holding?
Daily Journal is a company where I feel like I probably should have bought a lot more shares a lot earlier, and it's kind of deceptive because anytime anybody buys the shares, and it's not very easy to buy the shares, it's not very liquid, you look at it and you go, why am I buying this thing? Because it doesn't look very attractive. But the culture, in a way, perhaps even more than at Berkshire Hathaway, at Daily Journal, is that they're constantly looking for things in their new business, Journal Technologies. They do a lot of consulting work for free for municipalities, and they will only start being able to make money from that consulting work when they get a contract. And so the company is building up enormous amounts of goodwill with municipalities around the country without earning any revenues from them. And so what will happen, I predict, at Daily Journal is suddenly you'll see revenues growing a lot. And you will ask, why is it growing? And you will have to look back 5 or 10 years to see why. It's because they did all this work for free and built up all this goodwill with all these different municipalities around, or legal systems around the country. So that culture of show very little now, do the best you can with what you have, don't try and make money short term, but tell people if you like the work that we do over the long, buy from us in the future, is something that is a kind of like a hidden asset, if you like, inside of Daily Journal, which is interesting and is the way I try to live my life. Again, the big home I live in is Berkshire Hathaway, and Daily Journal is a small home that I also choose to live in. I think that culture will remain even though Charlie Munger is not around. Mm-hmm. So, and as you know, it owns some pretty sizable positions in some Chinese companies. Charlie Munger was a visionary. And it was really unusual to me, as it was in part because I was a shareholder of Daily Journal, that I started paying attention to Alibaba and to Tencent. And he really was a visionary in that way. It's really, really special man, very, very special man. So unusual, so unusual. Mm-hmm. I have a kind of a, so Charlie Munger focused on people from India and from China, as we were discussing. And so he had less interest in people like me who are from Europe and the United States, So but I can see how powerful that was. He saw people from India and China, and he said, I need to focus on these people because that is the future. Very unusual for a guy living in California,
What is your deepest reflection of Charlie Munger?
Charlie is probably the smartest guy I've ever heard of. He is opinionated, of course. If you have been to the meetings, you've seen him in action. He's not afraid to give his opinions, even though sometimes he gets a little bit of feedback opposite way. But Charlie realized he was in the law, practiced law, and realized that that was not for him. The more fun activity and the more interesting activity for him was investing. And he had a big impact on Warren. Warren, in working with him, decided that it was better to get a fair company or a good company at a fair price than a fair company at a really good price. In other words, Warren was more interested in bargains, and Charlie wanted high quality companies that had this long-term competitive advantage they talk about. And through his wisdom, I guess you'd say, Charlie convinced Warren that was the way to go, and the two were partners. I think talked almost every day. Charlie was a good sounding board. Warren would have some idea of an investing, and Charlie would point out the problems, and Warren would follow his advice. I would do some stories, and when I wrote the book, and Charlie would return my calls because I was from Omaha. He still had a soft spot in his heart for Omaha. He grew up here, worked at the same family grocery store that Warren worked years later, and he likes Omaha and likes the people. Doesn't like the weather, so he stayed in California. But otherwise, I think at heart he's a Midwestern Omaha guy.
You published the book, The Oracle and Omaha. So how did you approach the research for your book?
I had called Warren and told him we were doing a book and would like to talk to him. And he said, well, wait until you're almost done, and then you'll know what questions to ask. And so I waited till the last minute, so to speak, and then had an interview with him up at his office, and we filled in all the blanks that we needed to fill in. And he even came down and did a photo shoot with our photographer Matt Miller that made the cover and some of the inside stories.